So, welcome to our brand new lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. And what we are trying to do in this lecture series is we are covering that day's current affairs within 20 minutes. So, this lecture series is very important for you, and make this lecture series a part of your daily routine. That is very important. You see, if you have read that day's newspaper or today's newspaper, then also this lecture series is very important because your current affairs would get revised. And if you have not read today's newspaper, well, then this lecture series becomes very important for you because, well, you will cover your current affairs. Now, today we'll be covering June 21st newspaper or important news items from June 21st. All right. So let's take a look at the table of contents. What will we cover in this particular lecture? What was important in today's newspaper? So today's topics, that is June 21st topics, are Tamil Nadu's Hooch tragedy. It's a huge tragedy. Almost 100 people have been hospitalized. More than 30 people have died. So, what is this tragedy? What is Hooch? We'll talk about this. Then another examination scandal has come out. That is UGC-NET exam scandal, which is also conducted by NTA. We all have heard about NEET exam. Well, UGC-NET exam scandal has also come out. So, this is also in the news. We'll cover this, what UGC-NET is all about. And third news item is 65% quota in Bihar quashed. Now, Bihar government actually released a notification through which it was trying to increase quota in government jobs as well as educational institutions to up to 65%. Now, that was challenged in Patna High Court, and Patna High Court actually quashed it. So, what is this quota about? On the basis of what legal arguments did Patna High Court quash that argument or that notification of Bihar government? We'll talk about this. And as you guys all know, today is International Yoga Day, so we'll talk a bit about yoga. We'll talk about a bit about India's attempt to internationalize yoga. We'll talk about all these things. Okay, so without further ado, without much delay, let's talk about our first topic of the news, which is Tamil Nadu's Hooch tragedy. Now, at least 38 people have died. I told you before, 38 people have died and around 100 hospitalized after consuming Hooch in Tamil Nadu. Now, many people in Tamil Nadu's villages consumed Hooch. And that is why they have been hospitalized and some of them have died. Now, what is Hooch? Hooch is a local form of alcohol, locally brewed. Okay, not in factory, local. Hooch is a cheap homemade form of alcohol that is simply meant to intoxicate. It doesn't contain any taste thing. It's not tasty. It's bad for your palate also. It's not that tasty. But people consume it for intoxication and those people who cannot afford expensive alcohol. But the problem is that it is not prepared, taking into consideration various safety protocols. It is produced locally, and because of that, at times it is prepared improperly, incorrectly, which leads to poisoning of this local alcohol. And when people consume incorrectly prepared alcohol, well, it can even lead to death. Now, where does this word Hooch comes from? So, Hooch comes from the name of a tribe. The tribe resides in Alaska. So it's an Alaskan tribe. The name of the tribe is Hoochino. And this tribe was actually famous for preparing very powerful alcohol locally. So Hoochino tribe was famous for preparing very powerful local alcohol. So any local alcohol sometimes is termed as Hooch. Okay. So Hooch actually comes from Hoochino, which is name of an Alaskan tribe. Now, before understanding how this Hooch led to so many deaths, well, we'll talk about preparation of alcohol. How is alcohol prepared and how is Hooch prepared? All right, as you can see in this photo, this is local alcohol being prepared. Now, there are two procedures that are to be followed for preparing alcohol. Number one is fermentation. You see, anything, whether it's wheat, corn, anything that contains starch or carbohydrates, well, we add yeast to it. And after adding yeast to anything that contains carbohydrates, we heat it. When we heat it, yeast actually breaks down sugar in these carbohydrates to alcohol. All right. Now, the thing is that alcohol is poisonous for yeast. So, whenever the level of alcohol in that mixture, in that fermentation mixture, reaches 15%, yeast stops producing alcohol. Okay. That is why after fermentation, what you get, the mixture you get is 15% alcohol content. Okay. So, number one step or first step is fermentation, in which we use yeast and heat it to produce alcohol. But if you want powerful alcohol, then you need to go through the process of distillation. Now, what is distillation? In this, we actually increase the content of alcohol. So this is a process that physically separates alcohol from fermented mixture by taking advantage of the different boiling points of mixture's various contents. So different contents in the mixture, fermented mixture, have different boiling points. So we exploit that situation to extract alcohol out of it. Okay. Now, distillation is also important for another reason, and that is very important reason. And within that reason lies the Hooch tragedy. You see, yeast actually produces two types of alcohol. Number one is ethanol, which human beings consume. This is known as ethyl alcohol. This is the alcohol that people consume. The other type of alcohol that yeast produces is methanol. Now, both ethanol and methanol are alcohols, but ethanol is fit for human consumption and methanol is poisonous. So, during distillation process, during fermentation, yeast actually produces both these types of alcohols. But since methanol is poisonous, so during distillation, methanol is separated from ethanol and then ethanol is sold in the markets for human consumption. Okay, that is why distillation process is very important, because you need to separate methanol. Because if you won't, then methanol poisoning would happen. And methanol poisoning is harmful for human beings. It can even lead to death. And that is why this huge tragedy, Hooch tragedy happened. Why? Because people who locally prepare alcohol use local substandard equipments. And at times, their equipments are unable to separate methanol completely. And this locally produced alcohol contains methanol, people consume it, and they are, well, harmed by it. That is why distillation process needs to take care of all the important safety protocols, which these local people who prepare hooch do not take care of. And that is what happened in Tamil Nadu. All right. Now, how is methanol dangerous or how is hooch dangerous? Let's talk about that. Okay. Since fermentation produces both methanol, which is poisonous, and ethanol, which is fit for consumption, distillation process should be careful in removing methanol. Hooch producers use rudimentary equipment, substandard equipment, and hence their process can be full of errors, leading to methanol poisoning. Now, what happens through methanol? Well, methanol's harmful effects are as following. It causes impaired vision. Many people who are poisoned by methanol cannot see. Methanol has high toxicity. Methanol also causes metabolic acidosis. This term is important. Remember this. It can be asked as an MCQ in your prelims examination. What is metabolic acidosis? Well, when your body produces too much acid in the body so that it becomes very difficult for your kidneys to remove that excess acid. Okay, this is known as metabolic acidosis and it is caused by methanol poisoning. That is why removal of methanol is important. Now, if you have been poisoned with methanol, well, you are prescribed. The treatment is set. You are prescribed with a drug which is called fomepizole. Okay, but fomepizole medicine is very expensive and not easily available in India. So local doctors, what they do is they give you a mixture of ethanol and water in 1:1 ratio. Ethanol and water is given to a person who is poisoned by methanol and is unable to afford fomepizole. This also cures methanol poisoning, but timely intervention is required, which is not accessible to villagers because villagers don't have access to good healthcare, good doctors, and that is why this happens. All right, so that's the case. Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. This topic number 1 is done, Hooch tragedy. Now let's move on to UGC-NET exam scandal. Well, another exam scandal has been out in the open. That is UGC University Grants Commission National Eligibility Test. It was cancelled by Ministry of Education. Now, why was it cancelled? Because National Cybercrime Threat Analytics Unit, which comes under Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center, Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center, also known as I4C, it has a unit called National Cybercrime Threat Analytics Unit. They actually detected a cyber threat. And in that cyber threat, people were leaking UGC-NET exam online. All right. They were hacking the system, leaking the paper, and releasing it online. So that's a form of cyber threat. And that is why I4C flagged that threat. When that threat came to Ministry of Education, well, Ministry of Education took the decision of cancelling that exam. Okay. Now, this cancellation will impact more than 9 lakhs candidates because more than 9 lakh candidates sit for UGC-NET exam. Now, what is important for us? What is this UGC-NET exam? Okay, so let's talk in brief about this UGC-NET exam. Okay, so UGC-NET exam is conducted twice every year. Okay, it's conducted twice every year, once in June, and the other time it is conducted in December. Okay, June and December. Now, who conducts UGC-NET exam? Well, the same body that conducted NEET exam, National Testing Authority, NTA. Well, NTA started conducting this exam since December 2018. So from December 2018 onwards, UGC-NET exam is conducted by NTA. Before NTA, it was conducted by CBSE. Okay, but now NTA conducts it. Now, why do candidates sit for this exam? Why is this exam important? Why do candidates go for this exam? Well, the purpose of this exam is as following. Okay. Anyone who wants to become an assistant professor in any government college or any private college, well, this exam is mandatory for them. So it is mandatory for the post of assistant professor. You need to qualify this exam to be eligible for the post of assistant professor. Okay. Now, after completing your MPhil or your master's, you might go for junior research fellowship in any university. Well, this exam is important for that as well. The number of marks you score in this exam, UGC-NET exam, decides which university you will get a JRF from. Okay. Plus, any candidate who wants to secure who wants to secure admissions in any PhD course in any university, well, for them also UGC-NET scores are important. So anyone who wants to become an assistant professor, anyone who wants a JRF, anyone who wants a PhD seat in any university, well, UGC-NET exam is important for them. All right. That's about it. That's all you need to know about UGC exam this year. Just remember this fact that it is conducted by a few facts for prelims you need to remember. Number one, it is conducted by NTA. Around 9 lakh students give it. And which types of students or what is the purpose of giving this exam? These are the three purposes of giving this exam. All right. Okay. This was a short news item. Let's move on to the third news item, which is again very important. 65% quota in Bihar quashed. And what was the news? Well, Patna High Court on Thursday set aside notification by the Bihar government increasing reservation in government jobs and educational institutions from 50% to 65%. Well, currently reservation, around 23% reservation is provided to SCs and STs and 27% reservation is provided to OBCs, right? Which roughly comes about to 50%. Now, what Bihar government was trying to do is Bihar government actually released a notification in which backward classes would be provided reservation not up to 50%, but they tried to raise the ceiling to 65%. And this notification was challenged in Patna High Court, and Patna High Court actually quashed this decision of Bihar government. Now, what was the basis of this quashing of Bihar government's notification? What basis did Patna High Court use to quash this notification? Well, the Patna High Court actually cited a Supreme Court judgment given in 1992. This was known as Indra Sahni case, Indra Sahni judgment, in which Supreme Court actually decided a ceiling for reservations in government jobs, and that ceiling was 50%. By ceiling, what I mean is that Supreme Court, Honorable Supreme Court said back in 1992 in Indra Sahni case that no government can provide reservations more than 50%. So there is a 50% ceiling. All right. But the Honorable Supreme Court also clarified that this 50% ceiling is only for reservations in case of backward classes. Educationally and socially backward classes. That includes SC/STs, that includes OBCs. So only for this purpose, for providing reservation to backward classes, this 50% ceiling holds. All right. You might be asking this question that 50% reservations is for SC/STs and OBCs, and there is 10% reservation for EWS. So how does this 50% ceiling holds? I mean, Indra Sahni case said that 50% ceiling should be there, but extra 10% reservation for EWS would make the amount of reservation to 60%. How is that possible? Well, the Supreme Court said that this extra 10% reservation is not being given on the basis of backwardness criteria. It is being given on the basis of economical weakness. So that is why this 50% reservation or ceiling does not apply. Any which way. Let's talk about Indra Sahni case first. Okay, what this case was all about. All right. So Indra Sahni case, it was a landmark judgment by Supreme Court in 1992, which introduced 50% ceiling to ensure efficiency in administration. The Supreme Court way back in 1992 gave a reason for putting this ceiling, 50% ceiling. Supreme Court said that if we do not put any ceiling to this matter, then governments would provide reservation, and at any point of time, any government would provide 90% reservation also. That is completely unjustified. Supreme Court said that to ensure that the administration runs efficiently, reservation needs to be kept in check, and that check is 50% ceiling. It was a 9-judge bench and 6-3 majority verdict, which was in favor of this 50% ceiling. What was decided in this case? Well, first of all, in this case, people actually challenged the quota for OBCs, 27% quota for OBCs. Well, Indra Sahni case, the Supreme Court actually allowed 27% quota for OBCs. Supreme Court said that 27% quota for OBCs is justified. All right. But Apart from that, Supreme Court gave two precedents. Number one, Supreme Court gave a criteria to identify who is socially and economically, educationally backward class. Who is socially and educationally backward. So Supreme Court actually gave a criteria, like the creamy layer criteria. Okay, so this was number one thing. The other was 50% ceiling. Okay, so these two things were given by Supreme Court in Indra Sahni case. Though back in 1992, Supreme Court also said that 50% ceiling will hold except in exceptional circumstances. So if there are exceptional circumstances, well, one can breach this 50% ceiling. Now, what are those exceptional circumstances? Well, number one, the case of exceptional circumstance came during EWS reservation, the 10% EWS reservation provided by the central government. Well, Supreme Court opined, or Supreme Court argued, that this extra 10% reservation is based on economic criteria. Right? It is not based on socially and educationally backward criteria, which is the case with SC/STs and OBCs. So since it is not based on backwardness criteria, the 50% ceiling does not hold. 50% ceiling only holds in the case of providing reservations to people who are considered socially and educationally backward. Since EWS people are not considered socially and educationally backward, so 50% ceiling does not apply to them. All right. The other exceptions are as following. Well, 76th Constitutional Amendment Act actually allowed Tamil Nadu government to provide more than 60% reservation. How? By putting this bill of Tamil Nadu government under 9th schedule of the Constitution. And as per Constitution, as per Article 31A of the Constitution, anything that is put in 9th schedule cannot be challenged in any court of law. So that is why Tamil Nadu got away with, they actually got away with providing or breaching this 50% ceiling. What they did was, plus at that time Indra Sahni judgment was also not there. So Tamil Nadu government came out with a bill that provided more than 60% reservation to educationally and backward classes, and they put that bill in 9th schedule by asking for help from the central government. So central government helped Tamil Nadu government out. They put this bill of Tamil Nadu government in 9th schedule, so it got protected from any challenge in any court. All right. So this is the entire case. Okay, so that's about it. You just need to be familiar with Article 31A and all that stuff. Now let's move on to next news item. Last but not the least, well, 21st June is celebrated every year as International Yoga Day. Okay, remember this. The theme for this year's International Yoga Day is Yoga for Self and Society. Last year it was, in 2023, it was Yoga for Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, One Earth, One Family. Actually, last year in 2023, India was the president of G20 group. India did have the presidency of G20 group, and the theme of G20 in 2023 was Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So that is why the theme of International Yoga Day in 2023 also became Yoga for Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Though this year, in 2024, it is Yoga for Self and Society. Please, themes are important. They can be asked in MCQs. Okay. Now, this year's International Yoga Day is being celebrated by Prime Minister Modi in Srinagar. Okay. Now, let's talk about how did Yoga Day became international. Okay. How did India ensure that the entire international community recognizes 21st June as International Yoga Day? Okay. So, India pressed hard on United Nations and it yielded results. Where the United Nations General Assembly on December 11th, 2014 passed a resolution. Okay. And in that resolution, the entire international community, the entire United Nations General Assembly decided to designate June 21st as International Day of Yoga. Okay. So India diplomatically pressed hard on United Nations General Assembly, and United Nations General Assembly yielded, and they recognized June 21st as International Yoga Day. That became a milestone for India's soft power. It was a big achievement for India's soft power or India's cultural hegemony. India was able to project its culture internationally. Now, the first Yoga Day celebrations were held in 2015 at Rajpath in New Delhi. Rashtrapati Bhavan, the road in front of Rashtrapati Bhavan is known as Rajpath, as you can see, India Gate and Rashtrapati Bhavan. So these are pictures from the first Yoga Day celebrations in 2015. Plus, this Yoga Day celebration actually broke two Guinness World Records. Number one was largest. It was the largest yoga session. 35,985 people participated in it. Plus, it also broke Guinness World Record for having the largest number of participating nationalities. People from 84 countries participated in this event. So it broke two Guinness World Records. All right. Now, another thing that is important, especially for prelims, and that is why I'm covering it, is the description of logo. Now, look, UPSC can ask questions regarding the logo of International Yoga Day. So this is the logo for International Yoga Day and what each symbol means. Okay, so folded hands represent union of individual consciousness with universal consciousness. Just remember this. Statement-based questions can be asked in MCQs. Like they might ask you, consider the following statements regarding International Yoga Day. The folded hands in the logo of International Yoga Day represents Earth. So that would be a wrong statement. So you need to know about this. Okay, brown leaves actually represent earth element. Green leaves represent nature. Blue represents water. Okay, brightness represents fire element. And sun represents source of energy and inspiration. All right, so these are the elements of International Yoga Day, especially elements of logo of International Yoga Day. All right, you need to be familiar with this. Okay, and with that, we conclude today's session. Okay, we have covered the important news items of Friday's June 21st, 2024's newspapers. Actually, I'm covering all the newspapers, all the important newspapers, whether it's Hindu, Indian Express, Economic Times, and I choose the most important news items from that, and we try to cover it in within 20 minutes. Okay, so we have concluded this session. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I'm sincerely hoping that it has added value to your preparation. But more value will be added if you watch this lecture series regularly. Please, 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 please. I will not repeat it again and again, but I'm actually repeating it. Make this lecture series a part of your daily routine. It is very important. Daily routines, daily habits are important. They decide your fate as far as this exam is concerned. All right. With that, I sign off. Thank you so much for watching, everyone.